A group of blatantly racist men attacked a woman of color out of blind hatred, manipulated by the unseen strings of their leader. Little did they know, they had made a grave mistake. When the woman's identity was revealed, the men were shocked to realize they had inadvertently exposed a brutal network of hatred hidden in the shadows. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel to follow us through shocking stories you won't want to miss. The afternoon in the park was serene. A pale golden sunlight draped over the winding paths, casting long shadows from ancient oak trees. The laughter of children on swings blended with the distant chirping of birds, creating a tranquil and soothing scene. Maya Harper sat alone on a bench near a small pond, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Her simple outfit, a gray t-shirt and jeans, concealed a toned body, while a black leather jacket rested neatly beside her. On her arm, a faint scar glimmered in the sunlight, a relic of her years in the military. Though she had left the Navy SEALs long ago, the instincts of a soldier never truly left her. Maya quietly surveyed her surroundings, not out of suspicion, but because it was second nature. In a distant corner of the park, 4 men gathered under an old oak tree, their sharp laughter cutting through the otherwise calm atmosphere. Their leader, Luther, a towering man with broad shoulders and a gleaming shaved head, leaned against the trunk, his eyes sweeping across the park like a predator hunting its prey. A faint tattoo on his neck hinted at a life lived outside the law. Luther nudged the wiry man next to him, who had a patchy beard, and gestured toward Maya. "There she is," Luther said in a low voice, dripping with disdain. "Sitting there like she owns the place. Looks tough," a younger man remarked with a chuckle, "but it's probably just for show." Maya felt their eyes on her before she even saw them. A subtle shiver ran down her spine, but she betrayed no sign of unease. Slowly, she turned her head and locked eyes with Luther. Neither looked away, a clear signal that trouble was brewing. Maya relaxed her shoulders, resting one arm casually on the back of the bench, as though she didn't care. But in her mind, she was already assessing the situation. 4 men, with Luther as the strongest. The 2 younger ones seemed more cocky than truly dangerous. She wasn't facing random strangers. She was dealing with men who thought she was an easy target. The group began approaching Maya, their laughter growing louder, deliberately drawing attention. A few passers-by glanced their way, but quickly looked away, unwilling to get involved. Luther stopped directly in front of Maya, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Hey there," he said, his voice sugary yet mocking. "Nice day to sit here all alone, huh?" Maya looked up, her gaze calm but piercing. "It is. What do you want?" Her straightforward question made the group burst into laughter. "That attitude," the bearded man said, leaning closer. "You think you're better than us, huh?" "Not thinking anything," Maya replied evenly. "Just sitting here, minding my own business." Luther stepped closer, his smirk fading into something more menacing. "That bag," he said, pointing to the leather bag beside Maya. "Hand it over. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Maya picked up the bag and rose slowly. Though Luther towered over her, her posture made him instinctively flinch. "What if I don't?" she asked, her tone calm yet unyielding. "Then we'll take it," Luther snarled, his crooked smile returning. "And maybe some other things too." Maya didn't wait for him to finish. As Luther reached out, she sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted hard. A sharp crack echoed as he stumbled to the ground, crying out in pain. Before the others could react, Maya delivered a swift kick to the bearded man's knee, sending him crumpling down. The 2 younger men charged, but Maya quickly pivoted. knocking one out with an elbow to the face and shoving the other to the ground. Luther struggled to stand, but Maya was already looming over him, her eyes cold. "I warned you," she said quietly, her voice steady and firm. "Now leave before I change my mind." Defeated and humiliated, Luther and his gang scrambled to their feet and fled into the shadows. The bystanders could only watch, frozen, unwilling to intervene. Maya sat back down on the bench, exhaling slowly, her eyes still scanning the park, missing nothing. This encounter was only the beginning. Maya knew that once trouble reared its head, it would return, stronger and more dangerous. In the quiet darkness of the evening, a pale yellow light spilling from Maya's apartment window glowed like a beacon. Maya had just finished cleaning a scrape on her arm when a knock came at the door. Without looking through the peephole, she already knew who it was: Reese Harper, her brother, and a dedicated city police officer. Reese stood silently, gazing at his sister. His eyes reflected a mix of worry and guilt, emotions he had long tried to bury. Memories of their shared childhood surface, when he had always been the one to shield Maya from hardship. Now, seeing her facing a battle he couldn't entirely protect her from, he couldn't help but wonder, had he done enough as her brother? Maya shrugged slightly, unsurprised. "I guess word travels fast. Do you know who those guys were?" Reese asked, narrowing his eyes. "Luther Daniels and his crew. They're not just some street thugs." Maya was quiet, recalling Luther's cold gaze and sinister grin. "He's bold, but not smart enough," she replied. "If he thought he could take me down easily, he's learned his lesson." Reese didn't laugh. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't get it, Maya. These guys don't just work for money or thrills. Luther is the right-hand man of someone even we don't dare touch. Victor Langston." Maya frowned slightly. The name was familiar. Langston, the powerful businessman with those inspiring speeches about community protection? Exactly. Reese nodded. But beneath that facade lies a complex network. Langston doesn't just fund extremist groups, he uses them to carry out intimidation campaigns, driving residents out of neighborhoods so he can snatch up the land for pennies. Reese let out a heavy sigh and pulled out a chair to sit across from Maya. "You think these guys are just ordinary criminals? They're not. They're protected, Maya. We've tried to arrest Luther multiple times, but somehow he always walks free within days. Langston has too many connections in the legal system. People like me can't even get them to court." Maya looked at her brother, her gaze steady but sharp. "So, you're telling me the system you serve can't do anything to stop this?" Reese nodded reluctantly. "I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. And if you keep going up against them, you'll only put yourself in danger." "Danger found me," Maya replied coldly. "I'm not going to sit around and wait for it to pass." Reese shook his head. "Maya, I know you're strong, but this is bigger than anything you've ever faced. Langston doesn't just have money. He has political power. Even within the police department, some people won't touch him. So, what are you going to do?" Maya asked, her eyes challenging. Reese was silent for a moment, then leaned forward. "I can't openly help you, Maya, but I can't stand by and do nothing either. If you're determined to go deeper into this, I'll support you. But you have to be careful. We can't trust anyone." The next day, Reese walked into the commander's office, where his superiors were discussing the incident at the park. The fluorescent lighting highlighted the stern faces of middle-aged men in sharp suits. Harper, Lieutenant Mitchell, Reese's superior, called him in a commanding tone. "The conflict at the park, the victim's brother, right?" "Yes, sir," Reese replied, striving to remain composed. Mitchell crossed his arms, his gaze cutting. "Listen, Harper, We don't want this to turn into a political issue. Langston has too much influence, and we don't have the evidence to take him down. If you push this case too far, we'll face the consequences. So, you're saying we let them do whatever they want? Reese asked, his voice restrained. Mitchell glared. Don't be foolish, Harper. This is a game bigger than you. Focus on maintaining peace, not stirring trouble. Reese didn't respond, but a fire burned inside him. He left the meeting knowing that if he wanted to protect Maya and bring Luther to justice, he would have to act without permission. That evening, Reese met Maya again in a small cafe. His expression was serious as he looked at her. I've realized something, Maya. If we want to take them down, we can't rely on this system. Maya raised an eyebrow. What did you just say? Reese Harper, model police officer. Don't get it twisted, Maya, Reese said firmly. I still follow the law, but if the law isn't enough to protect you and others, I'm willing to step outside the lines a little. Maya smiled faintly. Welcome to the real fight. Reese leaned back in his chair, his gaze hardening. I just need you to promise me one thing. Don't take reckless risks on your own. We do this together. Agreed, Maya said, though her mind was already formulating a bigger plan. She knew that to take down Langston, they needed more than determination. They needed evidence, allies, and a move no one would see coming. That night, as Maya pondered Reese's words, a message from Sarah Bennett appeared on her phone screen. Heard about the park incident. We need to talk. Call me when you're free. Sarah was a seasoned investigative journalist, renowned for pursuing stories others avoided. As Maya's best friend since high school, Sarah understood her friend's determined nature, and she also knew Maya wouldn't let the park incident end without taking action. Sarah recalled their school days, sitting together under the shade of the old trees. Even back then, Maya had been brave, always standing up for the vulnerable. But Sarah also knew Maya often hid personal pain behind her tough exterior. It was this quality that led Sarah to vow to stand by her friend. If Maya has spent her life protecting others, then this time I'll protect her, Sarah resolved. Sarah arranged to meet Maya at a small cafe on the corner of the street. The dim lighting and murmurs of other patrons created a private atmosphere. In front of them was Sarah's laptop, displaying a cascade of articles and documents tied to the cases she'd been following. The park incident wasn't random. Sarah began bluntly, her eyes fixed on Maya. Luther and his crew have appeared in multiple reports, but what's strange is that every time they're arrested, they're released quickly, leaving no trace. Maya sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. Reese said Luther's just a pawn. I think he works for Victor Langston. Sarah nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Langston. That name's come up more than once in my investigations. On the surface, he's a model businessman, giving speeches about community development and economic opportunity. But if you dig deeper, there's a lot that doesn't add up. She opened a file and pointed to a list of financial transactions. He owns a slew of construction and real estate companies. These companies frequently engage in projects in socially unstable areas where property values drop drastically after residents are driven away. And the residents leave because they're scared, Maya added, the pieces starting to fall into place. Luther's crew does the dirty work. Intimidation, disruption, to push people out. Then Langston buys the land for next to nothing. Sarah looked at Maya, her agreement clear. Exactly. He uses people like Luther to get his hands dirty while keeping his image spotless. In the days that followed, Maya and Sarah became a seamless team. Sarah utilized her investigative skills to dig into Langston's financial dealings and networks, while Maya, with her Navy SEAL instincts, covertly tracked Luther and his crew's activities. One night, Sarah called Maya over to her apartment. Spread across the table were maps and documents marked with red circles. Sarah pointed to a detailed map of the area. "Look at this. Over the past 6 months, there have been at least 10 similar incidents in multi-ethnic neighborhoods. Luther or his crew was reported in most of them." Maya picked up a sheet of paper and read descriptions of the incidents: vandalism, assaults, and even suspicious fires. They're not just threatening people. They're trying to destroy communities from the inside. Sarah opened another folder revealing secret financial transactions from Langston's companies. And here's how he finds it. Large sums are funneled from his construction firms into anonymous accounts, and then they disappear. I found a few internal documents suggesting these funds are used to pay groups like Luther's. Sarah played a video from a recent press conference by Victor Langston. In it, Langston stood at a podium, wearing a sharp suit and a confident smile. "Our community needs stability," he said, his voice deep and persuasive. "We must do everything we can to protect traditional values and build a brighter future." But Maya noticed something unusual. "His words," she said. "They sound positive, but they're a call to action for extremists. Protecting traditional values? Resisting change?" Sarah nodded. "Exactly. He never says it outright, but his language is like a code. Groups like Luther's understand it as marching orders." Maya stood, arms crossed, her gaze resolute. "We need to bring this to light. If Langston keeps going, he'll destroy even more communities." Sarah hesitated, placing a hand on Maya's arm. "I know you want to act, but be careful. He's not the kind of man who'll sit by and let someone expose him." Maya nodded slightly, but her mind was already made up. She knew she was stepping into a dangerous battle, but she had no intention of backing down. Langston had built his network on fear and hatred, and Maya would not let it stand. The evening passed in an eerie silence. After a long day spent with Sarah digging into Victor Langston's network, Maya returned to her small apartment. The dim light from the street lamp filtered through the window, casting faint shadows on the walls. She carefully checked the locks in the dark corners of the apartment before entering, a habit ingrained from her years as a Navy SEAL. But tonight, an unsettling feeling clung to her. Her phone buzzed on the table, displaying an anonymous message. "You don't know who you're messing with. Stop before it's too late." Maya frowned, deleted the message, and set the phone down. She wasn't one to be easily intimidated, but her instincts warned her. Tonight would not be peaceful. Soft, yet distinct footsteps echoed from the hallway outside. Maya stood, holding her breath, her hand gripping a dagger hidden in her desk drawer. She moved closer to the door, her eyes fixed on the shadow of a figure standing motionless outside. The window rattled suddenly. Another shadow darted past outside, too quick to discern. Maya immediately understood. This wasn't just a threat. It was a hunt. Without hesitation, she turned off the lights and slipped into the inner room. The sound of the front door being forced open shattered the quiet, and flashlight beams sliced through the apartment like sharp blades. Maya kept her breathing steady, waiting for the right moment. When one of the intruders entered the bedroom, Maya struck. A precise blow to the wrist made him drop his gun. Before he could react, Maya slammed him to the ground and pinned him with practiced ease. But the sound of hurried footsteps behind her forced her to let go and retreat. The small apartment was no longer safe. Maya dove out the window, climbing down the fire escape as gunshots rang out above her. The flickering street lights reflected the shadows of her pursuers, like predators chasing their prey through the night. Maya sprinted down a dark alley, her breathing heavy but her steps steady. The footsteps of her hunters grew louder, and she knew she had to act. She abruptly turned a corner, hiding behind a large dumpster, and listened intently as they approached. "Victor wants her gone tonight," one of them said, his voice cold and devoid of hesitation. "Both her and Reese Harper. He doesn't want anyone left alive." The assassin closest to her had barely finished speaking when Maya attacked. She emerged from the darkness, delivering a precise blow to his temple that knocked him unconscious. Before the others could react, she dragged him into the shadows and pinned him. "What did he say?" Maya hissed through clenched teeth, her voice sharp as a blade. "What does Victor want?" The assassin struggled, but Maya's fierce gaze made him falter. "He wants you dead," he gasped. "You and your brother. He doesn't want anyone interfering with his plans." Maya tightened her grip, making him cry out in pain. "What plans? What does Victor want?" "He wants everyone like you out of this city," the man stammered. "As long as you disappear, no one will dare challenge him." Before Maya could press him further, a gunshot echoed in the distance. The assassin slumped in her arms, blood seeping from a wound in his chest. Maya tossed him aside and took cover behind the corner as bullets whizzed past. The assassins were still hunting her, but Maya had made up her mind. She knew she couldn't keep running. This wouldn't end until she faced Victor directly. Using the darkness and the layout of the alley, Maya silently took down the remaining assailants one by one before vanishing into the night. At dawn, Maya arrived at Sarah's house, her clothes torn and her face marked with scratches. Sarah opened the door, startled by Maya's appearance. "What happened?" Sarah asked. "Victor has ordered my death and Reese's," Maya replied, her voice firm, her eyes filled with determination. "We're out of time. If we don't take him down, he'll come for us first." The next morning, Maya and Reese met at a small diner, both exhausted but resolute. Maya recounted the chase from the night before and Victor's threat. Reese listened, his expression darkening. "Victor isn't just trying to scare you. He wants to eliminate anyone who stands in his way," he said gravely. "We need to capture Luther," Maya said bluntly. "He's the weakest link. If we can make him talk about Victor's plans, we'll have a chance to stop this." Reese nodded and quickly organized a small team of officers he trusted most. The group targeted an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, identified by Sarah as Luther and his gang's hideout. The raid took place under the cover of night. Maya, leading alongside Reese, quietly approached the front entrance. With a signal from Reese, their team stormed inside. Footsteps echoed in the cold space as flashlights swept through the shadows. Luther and his crew, caught off guard, fought back fiercely. In one corner, Maya faced Luther directly. He charged at her, trying to escape, but Maya swiftly brought him down with a precise takedown, pinning his arms to the ground. "It's over, Luther," she said, her voice sharp as steel. The police quickly subdued the rest of the gang. Luther, pale-faced, was handcuffed and dragged outside. His usual arrogance was replaced with a mix of anger and panic. Luther was taken to the interrogation room. Maya and Reese stood behind the one-way glass, watching as Lieutenant Mitchell began the questioning. But, despite the pressure, Luther stayed silent, his eyes filled with defiance. Maya's patience ran out. She entered the room, standing across from Luther. "I know you're scared," she said bluntly, her voice low but commanding. "Victor isn't someone to mess with, but if you don't talk, he won't be the only one making your life miserable. We have enough evidence to make sure you'll never see daylight again." Luther scoffed, but Maya noticed a flicker of doubt in his eyes. After a long silence, he finally began to speak. his tone bitter. "He used me," Luther said, looking directly at Maya. "I used to be a mechanic. I had a family and a steady job. But then the economic crisis hit. I lost everything. The factory shut down and they left us with nothing." Maya remained silent, listening as his voice grew heavier. "Victor came to me when I was desperate. He told me it wasn't my fault, that it was because of them. He planted the idea in my head that things would get better if I fought back. I took back what was rightfully ours. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. And then I became his puppet." Maya leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "You're not the only one who's lost everything, Luther, but that doesn't justify what you've done. Intimidation, attacks, destruction, all for Victor's benefit. He used you as a tool, and when you're no longer useful, he'll abandon you." Luther clenched his fists on the table, his veins bulging. "You don't understand," he growled. "Victor has my family. If I talk, he'll kill them." Reese, standing on the other side of the glass, stepped into the room. "If you don't talk, we can't help them," he said firmly. "Victor will keep doing this and you'll just be another victim on his long list." Luther looked up, his eyes filled with anguish. "He has people everywhere. Cops, lawyers, politicians, they're all in his pocket. Even if you take me down, he'll still win." Maya leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Only if we let him. You know what he's doing. You know his network. Give us the information and we'll protect you and your family. This is your only chance to make things right." But Luther sat still, his eyes conflicted. He shook his head, his voice breaking. I can't take that risk." Maya stood, her expression cold. "You can refuse, but I won't stop. If you don't help, I'll find another way to bring Victor down. And when I do, don't expect me to come back for you." She left the room, leaving Reese and Luther in tense silence. Out in the hallway, Sarah was waiting, her face lined with worry. "What did he say?" she asked. "Not enough," Maya replied, her eyes resolute. "But I'll make him talk, one way or another." Maya left the interrogation room with quick, determined steps, but a heavy feeling weighed on her. Luther hadn't told the full truth, or he was too afraid to. She knew she needed to dig deeper to reach the root of the problem. Down the hallway, Sarah was waiting with a thick folder in her hands, her sharp eyes carrying their usual intensity. "I found something we need to look at immediately," Sarah said, pulling Maya out of the tense atmosphere of the police station. "Victor Langston isn't just a businessman, Maya. I've uncovered connections showing he's funding extremist groups, but it's all disguised under the name of community development." Sarah spread the folder across the table in Maya's apartment. Rows of small text, financial charts, and photos of Victor at public events were laid out clearly under the light. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a financial chart. "He owns multiple construction and real estate companies. These companies frequently fund projects in vulnerable areas, places with a high number of immigrants or minority communities. At first glance, the funds appear to be for infrastructure improvements, but when I dug deeper, the money was being funneled into accounts owned by extremist groups." Maya stared at the documents, her lips pressed into a tight line. "He's using money to manipulate and destroy these communities, forcing people out and buying up the land at a discount, and all of it disguised as development." "Exactly," Sarah replied, flipping to another page. "What's even more chilling is how he uses his speeches. I reviewed videos from his press conferences and community events. He never directly mentions hate or discrimination, but his words are full of subtext." Sarah played a video on her laptop. In the clip, Victor Langston, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit with a confident smile, stood at a podium before a large crowd. His voice was deep and persuasive, and every word was carefully chosen. "Look at our community," Victor said in the video. "We must preserve our traditions, protect what defines the values of this place. Change is necessary, but not all change is good. We must stand together to ensure that outsiders don't dilute our heritage." Maya could feel the implied message in those words. "He's using language to stoke fear and hatred," she said, her gaze sharp. "He doesn't have to say it outright. People like Luther know exactly what he means." Sarah paused the video and looked at Maya. "This isn't just a businessman chasing profits. He's building a movement, a network rooted in fear and hate, and he's at the center of it." Sarah pulled out another document, this time a list of events Victor had sponsored over the past year. Speeches, community building workshops, even charity events, all to maintain his spotless image. "But I found evidence that some of these events were organized by the groups he's funding. Those groups were behind violent attacks targeting minority communities." Maya nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "He's calculated every move. He never leaves direct evidence. Everything's done through intermediaries, through people like Luther. But if we can connect these pieces, we can expose him." As Maya and Sarah worked through the documents, a breaking news broadcast appeared on the TV in Maya's apartment. Victor Langston was holding an emergency press conference. Both women fell silent, watching as he appeared on screen, as polished and composed as ever. "We are committed to bringing prosperity to all communities," Victor said, his tone dripping with benevolence. "But recently, I've heard unfounded accusations against our efforts. I want to make it clear that we do not condone any form of hatred or violence. Every action we take is for the benefit of everyone." Maya smirked, her gaze icy. Not only is he denying responsibility, but he's painting himself as the victim. This is how he keeps his power, by hiding his true nature under a perfect facade. Maya stood, her eyes resolute as she turned to Sarah. "We can't let him continue. He's used flowery words and money to manipulate everything, but we'll uncover the truth. If we can't take him down with words, we'll take him down with evidence." Sarah nodded. "So, what's the next step?" Maya replied without hesitation. "We need to make him slip. If we can't force him to confess, we'll make him make a mistake." Maya and Sarah continued their work after Victor Langston's press conference. Maya realized that everything Victor said was calculated to perfection, as if he anticipated every accusation they could throw at him. In Sarah's small apartment, tension filled the air as they reviewed the newly gathered documents. "Victor isn't doing all of this on his own," Sarah said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "He seems more like someone following orders, and I think we're missing something much bigger." Sarah opened an encrypted file she had spent hours decoding. When the file loaded, it revealed a series of complex financial transactions. Massive sums of money were transferred from offshore accounts, passing through multiple intermediaries before reaching Victor. "This is what I suspected," Sarah said, her tone sharpening. "Victor isn't the mastermind. He's just the middleman, a pawn following orders. But where are those orders coming from?" Maya leaned over to look at the screen, her sharp eyes scanning the data. One name stood out among the transactions: Orion. "Orion," Maya repeated, her voice thoughtful. "Who is that?" Sarah leaned back in her chair, her expression pensive. "From what I've found, this isn't a normal name. Orion is a code name, a person, or maybe a group, running the entire network. Victor is just a tool. But Orion, he or they are behind it all." Just then, Maya's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You're going too far, Maya Harper," Stop now before things get worse." A chill ran down Maya's spine. She handed the phone to Sarah, her anger barely concealed. "Orion knows about us," she said, her voice low but firm. "He's not just watching, he's tracking every move we make." Sarah frowned. "This isn't just a threat, Maya. It's a warning. And warnings like this are usually followed by action." Shortly after, Maya received a call from Reese. His voice was urgent, laced with the sound of chaos in the background. "Maya, don't go home. I just got intel from a source at the station. Someone is planning an attack on you." Maya quickly left Sarah's apartment, instructing her friend to stay behind for safety. Reese met her in a dark alley, waiting in an unmarked car. "This Orion isn't like anyone we've faced before," Reese said as he drove away. "He has power and resources, and clearly he'll do whatever it takes to protect his secrets." Maya clenched her fists, her gaze fixed on the window. "He thinks he can scare me, but we've come too far to back down now." Reese sighed, his worry evident on his face. "Maya, you need to be careful. These people don't play by the rules. They'll target anyone you care about. Sarah, even me." Meanwhile, Sarah continued digging into Orion's identity, tracing the financial accounts further. Eventually, she uncovered an encrypted email address linked to a hidden server. The data suggested that a crucial meeting was about to take place, a gathering where Victor and his associates would discuss their next move. "We need to intervene," Maya said as Sarah laid out her findings. "If we can infiltrate that meeting or expose Orion, we'll have the evidence we need to end this." Sarah stared at Maya for a long moment. She understood her friend's determination, but she couldn't shake her unease. Sarah had lost someone close to her during a similar investigation, and the painful memory still haunted her. She didn't want to lose anyone else, especially not the one person who truly understood her like Maya did. "If you're set on doing this," Sarah said, her voice heavy, "then I'm going with you. Not just for the truth, but because I don't want you to face this alone." In the darkness of the late night, Maya quietly prepared for the next step. Orion's threats echoed in her mind, but they only fueled her resolve. The mastermind behind this network wasn't just a ruthless businessman. He was a shadow in the dark, a dangerous force Maya was determined to bring down. Darkness enveloped the industrial district where the warehouse, believed to be Luther's gang's hideout, stood. The wind howled through empty streets, intensifying the tension. Reese and Maya sat in an unmarked car nearby, going over the plan one last time. "We've got support from the tactical team," Reese said, his voice low but firm. "The objective is to apprehend everyone, especially Victor's associates. If we can force them to talk, it'll be a turning point in taking down Orion." Maya nodded, her eyes fixed on the shadowy warehouse in the distance. "Make sure everyone's prepared. One small mistake and we all pay the price." The tactical team split into 3 groups surrounding the warehouse from all sides. Reese led one team, while Maya moved with another, approaching from the rear. They communicated through earpieces, their voices steady but urgent. "Area secure," Reese reported through the comms. "Move in on my signal." Maya tightened her grip on her gun, her sharp eyes scanning every shadow. When Reese gave the signal, the teams burst into the warehouse simultaneously. Instead of catching their targets off guard, they were met with a hail of gunfire. The clash erupted instantly. Luther's men were prepared as if they had known about the raid. Maya dove for cover, gunfire and shouts echoing around her. "They were tipped off," Reese shouted through the earpiece. "We've got a mole in the team." His words hit like a thunderclap. Maya realized it explained how Luther's crew was so ready. As she tried to identify the traitor, one of her team members fell, sand hot down right in front of her. A bullet grazed Maya's arm, but she kept fighting, the desperation of her comrades fueling her every move. In the chaos, Maya noticed one of Reese's team members, a man named Kellen, signaling to Luther's group. He was the mole. Maya's gaze locked with his for a brief moment, and she saw it clearly. Kellen wasn't just helping them. He was actively sabotaging their team. Recognizing the danger, Maya signaled her team to retreat. "We can't hold this position. Everyone fall back," she shouted into her comms. Reese, on the far side of the warehouse, tried to assist but was pinned down by another group of assailants. Amid the chaos, Maya was cornered against a wall. One of Luther's men charged her, but with her skills, she brought him down in seconds. She knew time was running out. As the flashing lights of police vehicles illuminated the outside, Maya sensed something was wrong. Amid the retreat, she caught Reese's gaze, a fleeting moment of hesitation as though he was hiding something. Maya tried to focus, but unease grew as she noticed Kellen lingering too long with the group of teammates Reese had assigned. Back at the base, Maya confronted Reese. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" she asked directly, her sharp eyes boring into him. Reese was silent for a moment before letting out a heavy sigh. "Maya, I don't have concrete evidence yet, but I suspect Sarah. She might have leaked critical information." Maya felt a heaviness settle in her chest. Sarah was a close friend, someone she trusted deeply. Reese's words made her question everything. Could Sarah's loyalty have been compromised under pressure from Orion? Or was this a trap to sow doubt between her and her closest ally? Reese nodded, his face clouded with disappointment. "How could I let this happen in my team?" he said, his voice rough with guilt. "I've worked so hard to build a reliable team, yet I miss the truth right in front of me." He turned to Maya, his eyes filled with helplessness. "Maya, I failed to protect you." Maya placed a hand on his shoulder, speaking softly but firmly. "You've protected me in the way you knew best, Reese, and that's what matters most." Reese clenched his jaw, his eyes steely. "I'll deal with them. But we just lost one of our own, and this fight just got a lot harder." Maya nodded, but doubt began creeping into her mind. She wasn't just questioning the loyalty of her team. She was realizing their enemies were more dangerous than she'd thought. People like Orion didn't rely solely on power and wealth. They had pawns hidden within the very ranks Maya believed she could trust. Sitting quietly outside the car, Maya stared into the night. She knew this battle wasn't just about strength or skill. It was a war of trust, and she wasn't sure who she could trust anymore. After the failed raid and the loss within their team, Maya knew they needed a breakthrough to keep the fight alive. During an extended interrogation, Reese and Maya finally convinced Luther to cooperate. His fear of Victor and his network was outweighed by the looming threat of a life sentence if he didn't tell the truth. "Luther will testify," Reese told Maya, his voice a mix of hope and caution. "He knows this is his only chance to reduce his sentence, if he's honest." On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed with curious, angry, and skeptical faces as Luther took the witness stand. Maya sat in the back row with Sarah and Reese, her eyes never leaving him. The prosecutor asked clear, direct questions, guiding Luther to explain Victor Langston's network and his role in organizing attacks on minority communities. At first, Luther stuck to his prior testimony. He detailed how Victor funneled money through intermediary companies, how he received orders through secret meetings, and how the network was designed to shield Victor from any legal accountability. But when the prosecutor reached the critical point, linking Victor directly to the hate crimes, Luther's demeanor shifted. He fell silent for a few seconds before abruptly declaring, "I was coerced. What I said before wasn't true. I only said it because I had no other choice." The courtroom fell silent in stunned disbelief. Maya felt anger surge through her. Reese clenched his fists while Sarah quickly began jotting down notes on the development. Victor's defense attorney seized the moment. "Your Honor," he said with calm but biting sarcasm, "this is clear evidence of how the authorities have coerced their witness into making false statements to incriminate an innocent man." The prosecutor tried to counter, but Luther clung to his new story, throwing the entire case into doubt. When the session adjourned, Maya stormed out, her hands balled into fists. "He's been bought by Victor," Reese said bitterly. "We just lost our key card." Maya turned to her brother, her eyes determined. "We're not done yet. Sarah, we need another way to make Victor pay." Unwilling to sit idle, Sarah dove back into Victor's financial records that she had previously collected. She uncovered an encrypted file on a server Victor owned, one that contained suspicious transactions linked to extremist group funding. "This is it," Sarah said to Maya and Reese as they gathered in her apartment that evening. She pulled up a detailed spreadsheet on her computer. These transactions directly tie Victor to groups like Luther's. He's funneled millions through shell companies to fund violent actions. Maya studied the screen, understanding the importance of the discovery. "This is the evidence we need. But what's the problem?" Sarah nodded, her worry evident. "The problem is, this document wasn't obtained legally. I had to breach the server's firewall to get it. If we use it in court, Victor's legal team will turn it into a liability and use it against us." Reese slammed his hand on the table, his face darkening. "So, what do? We can't just sit back and let Victor walk away again." Maya stood, her expression resolute. "We can't use this in court, but it tells us where to look. If Victor is confident enough to store this information on his server, there are bound to be backups or traces elsewhere. We'll find them. Legally." Sarah nodded. "I'll keep investigating these transactions. Maybe we can uncover another lead, a partner or a location Victor uses to hide his operations." Reese looked at the two women before him. "I'll make sure no one in the team sabotages us again. We can't afford another failure." Despite the setback in court, Maya and her team refused to give up. They knew Victor Langston wasn't untouchable, and Luther's betrayal only fueled their determination to expose the truth. As night fell, Maya stood by the window, gazing out into the dark sky. She knew this fight wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she couldn't back down. Orion and Victor might be powerful, but she had vowed to stop their hatred and crimes from continuing unchecked. Maya sat in Sarah's makeshift office, her eyes focused on the laptop screen displaying a list of bank transactions. Enormous figures lit up, linking a series of offshore accounts. Sarah sat beside her, fingers flying across the keyboard as she traced each step of the transactions. "This is the key," Sarah said, her voice taut with tension. "Victor has been using a Luxembourg bank account to fund extremist groups. These transactions are too intricate to detect easily. But if we follow this money trail, we might find Orion." Maya nodded, her eyes cold and sharp. "Victor's just a puppet. Orion is the one we need to take down." As Sarah delved deeper into the records, she discovered that the Luxembourg account was tied to a shell company headquartered in an office building downtown. Maya immediately recognized this as a critical lead, but they didn't have much time. While Sarah continued searching for more information, Maya reflected on Orion. "We're fighting a ghost," Maya said, her tone contemplative. "But every ghost has a source." Sarah paused, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. What are you implying, Maya? Orion isn't just some faceless nobody. He has motives, goals. He's put too much effort into building this network, Maya replied. He doesn't just want power or money. He wants something bigger. Sarah leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. You think he wants to change the world, but on his terms. And that makes him more dangerous than anyone we've ever faced. We need to get into that building before Victor or Orion realizes we're onto them, Maya said. If they suspect anything, all traces will disappear. Sarah glanced at Maya with concern. This is dangerous. If Victor finds out, he won't hesitate to silence us. Maya gave a faint, determined smile. He's already tried. This time I won't let him take the upper hand. That night, dressed in a sleek black suit, Maya melded into the darkness outside the office building. She had prepared meticulously, studying the building's layout, security cameras, and escape routes. Sarah was parked nearby in a car, monitoring from her laptop and feeding Maya information. There are 2 guards at the main entrance, Sarah said through Maya's earpiece. But there's a fire exit at the rear. The camera there is offline. Got it, Maya whispered. She moved silently, slipping through the shadows toward the fire exit. With a few swift motions, the lock clicked open. Inside, the building was eerily quiet. Maya navigated the hallways, heading toward the shell company's office. She found a large safe and a desktop computer. But as she began working on the safe, a faint sound behind her broke the silence. Not so fast, Harper, a cold voice said. Maya turned to see a tall man with a stern face standing in the doorway, blocking her exit. In his hand was a dagger, his eyes filled with lethal intent. Orion sent you, didn't he? Maya asked, shifting into a defensive stance. Call it loyalty, he replied, stepping closer. I'm here to make sure you don't leave with anything. He lunged, and Maya sidestepped swiftly. The 2 clashed in a dangerous fight. He was strong, but Maya was quick and skilled. His strikes cut through empty air as Maya dodged and countered, using her momentum to throw him to the floor. Before she could pin him, he sprang back up and landed a solid punch, forcing Maya to stagger back. The fight continued at a blistering pace, each movement echoing in the quiet building. Finally, Maya exploited a small opening, disarming him and pinning him from behind. Where is Orion? She growled. The man smirked, sweat glistening on his brow. You'll never find him. Orion is always one step ahead. Maya tightened her hold, but before he could say more, a piercing alarm blared. The building's security system had been triggered. You need to get out now, Sarah shouted through the earpiece. Police will be there in 5 minutes. Maya had no choice. She quickly grabbed the critical documents from the safe and disappeared into the shadows, leaving the subdued man tied up on the floor. When she reached the car, Sarah looked at her with worried eyes. What happened in there? Sarah asked. We got what we needed, Maya replied, holding up a stack of documents. But now, Orion knows we're on his trail. The real fight has just begun. As the car sped away into the night, Maya stared out the window, replaying the man's warning in her mind. Orion wasn't just a name. He was a shadow in the dark, always one step ahead. But this time, Maya was determined not to let him slip away. After the dangerous infiltration, Maya and Sarah returned to their temporary base to analyze the documents they had retrieved. The pages were filled with financial transactions, names of involved individuals, and, most importantly, a direct link tying Victor Langston to Orion. We've got him, Sarah said, her voice unable to hide her excitement. These documents are enough to force Victor to spill everything, but we need to act fast before he has a chance to erase any traces. Maya nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. This is the time to finish him. Call Reese and the tactical team. We're bringing Victor into the light. The next morning, Victor Langston's headquarters, a sleek skyscraper in the heart of downtown, descended into chaos as police swarmed the building. Employees scrambled to escape while Victor sat behind his large desk, attempting to maintain a facade of calm. Reese led the tactical team with Maya at his side. When they entered Victor's office, he raised an eyebrow, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You again? Do you think you can take me down with a few scraps of paper?" Maya didn't respond. Instead, she threw the stack of documents onto the desk in front of him. "We don't just have paperwork. We have your accomplices. One of your most loyal followers has agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence." Victor smirked, but his smile faded as Reese laid out an array of incriminating evidence. His expression darkened, and under pressure, Victor finally began to divulge critical information. "Orion," Victor muttered, his voice low, "he's behind everything, but I don't know who he is. All communications are through intermediaries." Maya fixed her gaze on him, her tone sharp. "You know more than you're admitting. If you don't, you're useless to us." Victor lowered his head as if grappling with an internal struggle before letting out a resigned sigh. "He's powerful, someone you can't touch. Even if you find him, there's nothing you can do." As police gathered evidence from Victor's office, Sarah discovered another hidden document in his safe. She quickly called Maya over to examine it. "This is what we need," Sarah said, pointing to a list of secret meetings Victor had attended. One name stood out on the list: Senator Edward Caldwell. "Orion is Caldwell," Maya exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief. "A powerful politician. No wonder he's been able to control everything from the shadows." Sarah skimmed through the remaining pages, uncovering that Caldwell had used his political influence to protect his network. Lawyers, corrupt police officers, and even the media, everything had been manipulated to cover up his activities. Reese entered the room, his expression grave. If Caldwell is Orion, he's not just protecting his network. He has a long-term plan. Maya pressed him, her tone urgent. "What plan?" Reese tossed a series of documents onto the table. "Caldwell isn't just a politician. He's been involved in secret military projects, places where he could experiment with new technologies and weapons. There's evidence he's funding extremist groups to create conflicts, testing his ability to control the chaos." Anger surged through Maya. He doesn't just want power. He wants to reshape society in his image, no matter who gets crushed in the process. Sarah interjected, her voice heavy with warning. "If we don't stop him soon, he won't hold back. And this time, Maya, he'll target the people closest to you." Maya realized that this fight was no longer just about herself. Reese and Sarah, people she cared deeply for, could become Orion's next targets. Maya clenched her fists, her eyes fixed on the stack of documents. "We can't stop now. Victor might be in custody, but as long as Caldwell is free, this network will continue to exist." Sarah nodded. "I'll keep following the trail. If he thinks his power can protect him forever, he's underestimated us." As Victor was escorted out, Maya watched him one last time, her gaze full of disdain. But she knew that the real battle was just beginning. Orion, Senator Edward Caldwell, was no longer just a shadow. Now he had a face. Maya turned to Reese and Sarah, her voice resolute. "We've come too far to stop now. Caldwell won't escape forever." Under the faint light of a new day, Maya felt the weight of the ongoing fight against hatred and manipulation. But she stood undaunted. She was ready to face the darkness, no matter how deep it ran. The gavel echoed in the courtroom, declaring the official sentence for Victor Langston and Luther's group. The room was steeped in heavy silence, broken only by Victor's muttered curses as he was led away. Maya stood at the back, feeling a fleeting sense of relief, but she knew deep down that this was far from over. Reese stood beside her, gently patting her shoulder. "Victor is down, Maya. This will shake his network. But I know what you're thinking. There's still a bigger monster out there." Maya nodded, her eyes steely. "Orion is still free, and he won't stop just because Victor's behind bars." In the days following the trial, the media exploded with coverage of Victor Langston's arrest and the heavy sentences imposed on Luther's group. Headlines proclaimed it a major victory in the fight against hate and injustice. But Maya felt no comfort. The document Sarah had uncovered revealed that Orion's network was not only vast, but shielded by some of the highest levels of power. Sarah met Maya at her apartment, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a stack of new files. "Victor might be down, but we both know this is just one branch of the system," she said, her voice thoughtful. "Orion won't let things end so easily." Sarah placed the files on the table, her gaze drifting into the distance. "You know, Maya, sometimes I wonder why I chose this path," she said softly. "It's not just about truth or justice. It's a reminder to myself not to turn my back on what matters most." She gave a tired smile, looking directly at Maya. "And you're part of that, Maya. That's why I'm here. Not just for the truth, but for you." "We need more," Maya replied, her voice low but resolute. "What Victor confessed is just the tip of the iceberg. If we want to bring Orion down, we need to unmask him, both to the public and in the courts." That night, Maya sat alone on a park bench, the very spot where it all began. The dim glow of streetlights illuminated her face, casting solemn shadows. Memories flooded back: the first confrontation with Luther's gang, the dangers she'd faced tracking Victor, and the looming specter of Orion's name. Maya sighed, her hands clasped tightly. She had fought relentlessly, but she understood this battle wasn't something that could end overnight. Facing someone like Orion, with immense political and financial power, required not only courage, but patience, strategy, and trust in the people standing by her side. Her phone suddenly buzzed. On the other end, Sarah's voice was filled with a mix of excitement and caution. "Maya, I have good news, and maybe bad news. I've just found a lead on where Orion might be hiding." Maya sat upright, her focus sharpening. "Where?" "Not an easy place," Sarah replied, her tone darkening. "A secret facility on the outskirts of the city, heavily guarded. But if this is him, we have a chance to bring everything into the open." Maya was silent for a moment, her eyes fixed on the shimmering reflections on the nearby lake. Then she gave a faint but determined smile. "Then we'll see it through, Sarah. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone he's hurt and exploited." Sarah took a deep breath. "I knew you'd say that. I'll get everything ready. Be prepared, Maya. The real battle is about to begin." Maya ended the call, stood up, and stared into the distance. The park was more peaceful now, but she knew the world beyond it was still riddled with shadows that needed to be confronted. She felt no fear, no hesitation. She'd come too far to stop. Under the quiet glow of the streetlights, Maya left the park, each step carrying a silent promise that no matter how strong or dangerous Orion was, she wouldn't stop until he was brought down. Small sparks of hope flickered in her mind, signaling a grueling but worthy fight ahead. The story of Maya Harper doesn't end at the park where it all began. It is an ongoing journey, a battle against darkness where resilience and courage stand against power and hatred. But the fight against Orion is far from over. Will Maya have the strength to defeat such a formidable and powerful adversary? What do you think about the challenges she will face next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the thrilling next chapters. Thank you for following along, and see you in the upcoming story.